Greetings to all. I'm Palak, student from Bennett University. Today we'll be discussing about IP address spoofing. Before actually going into the explanation, let's see on what topics the presentation is based on. So the topics for today are what is spoofing, types of spoofing, IP spoofing, applications of IP spoofing, and prevention methods of IP spoofing. So, what is spoofing? Spoofing is a type of scam where an intruder attempts to gain unauthorized access to a user's system or information by pretending to be the user. Spoofing occurs when malicious actors and cybercriminals act as trusted human contacts, brands, and organizations, as well as other entities or devices so that they can access systems and infect them with malware, steal data, and otherwise cause harm and destruction. At its core, spoofing is any action where a scammer disguises their identity to gain trust or bypass normal access rules. And hence, we call it as a hoaxed scam. Next, we have the types of spoofing. For now, in this presentation, we'll be studying only 4 types of spoofing, and the 5th one will be the IP address spoofing. So let's start. The first type of spoofing we have is the email spoofing. Email spoofing happens when the sender uses a fake email address to conduct criminal activity. This can be anything from sending attachments that, when downloaded, install ransomware or other malware that spreads across an entire network, to convincing the end user to send money or sensitive financial information. Next type of spoofing we have is the web spoofing. Website spoofing is the act of making a fake, malicious website look legitimate and safe. That we call the clone website. Cyber criminals typically disguise it using familiar brand logos, colors, and layouts so that the fake web page very closely resembles that of a website you visit often or from a company you trust. The next type of spoofing is DNS spoofing. Domain name system or DNS spoofing occurs when an attacker alters DNS records and uses them to redirect online traffic to a fake website that possesses as the intended website, also referred to as DNS cache poisoning. DNS spoofing involves replacing the IP addresses stored in the DNS server with the criminal's fake IP addresses. Next, MAC spoofing. Every device that's connected to a network possesses a worldwide unique and physical identification number, the media access control address, or MAC for short. This burned-in address is virtually etched to the hardware by the manufacturer. Users are not able to change or rewrite the MAC address, but it is possible to mask it on the software side. This masking is what's referred to as the MAC spoofing. Now, the main topic of the presentation, IP address spoofing. What is IP address spoofing? IP spoofing involves hiding or impersonating another computer system or mobile device by creating Internet Protocol or IP packets with a modified source address. How does IP spoofing works? A user accesses the internet from his or her local network computer, which has the IP address 192.168.0.5. When an IP spoofing attack occurs, this address is hidden and the user sends the packets indicating the spoofed IP address, that is 192.168.0.6, which is an authorized IP addresses. Now, what are these IP addresses? IP addresses are used to identify each computer in the network. In internet communication, the data is transferred in the form of packets, that is, the client sends web requests in the form of data packets to the server, and the web server sends back the responses in the form of data packets. When a client sends a packet to the server, the packet will have the IP addresses of the computer it is coming from. When an IP spoofing attack occurs, this source details that IP address which specifies the sender of the packet is not actual but a bogus IP address which is permitted to access the website. This will make the server handle the request which packet as it is coming from the permitted user. Thus, the server grants access to the attacker and it can cause various security threats. This is how the IP spoofing works. Next, we have the IP spoofing mechanism in a simple flowchart. The attacker will select a target or a victim. After that, he'll identify the host that has trust relation with the target. The trusted host is then impersonated, that is, the TCP sequence number is copied, and attacker successfully connects to the server and then executes the commands and hence control the system. Next up in the PPT, we have the attacks to be explained in which IP spoofing plays a key role. The major attacks are the DOS attack and application layer attack. IP spoofing in distributed denial of service attack. Distributed denial of service attack or DOS attack are geared at rendering a web application non-functional by overwhelming it with traffic or requests that could consume its processing bandwidth. It's like obstructing the normal route of a group of people and directing them to a smaller route made to accommodate a smaller amount of people. What this creates is a total uselessness of the victim application. There are quite a number of different DOS attacks, each with its method. Volumetric DOS attack. This type of DOS attack effectively uses volume to consume the processing capacity of victim application. This is where IP spoofing comes in. IP spoofing is often used to lay the groundwork for volumetric DOS attacks. For instance, when a trusted source tells to click on a link, the first reaction would be to click on that link. Cyber attackers spoof many trusted sources and use social engineering to direct people to a target website. Of course, this requires precision and technical know-how. However, it is one of the most effective ways of carrying out a volumetric DOS attacks in a way that appears legitimate. Next, IP spoofing in application layer attack. Application layer attacks are structured to target and leverage on the vulnerabilities of mobile and web applications. These type of attacks are very common in the cyberspace. The aim of the attacker is often to render an application non-functional, deface it, or steal the sensitive information of the users of the application in question. In most application layer attacks, the attackers take the advantage of the normal process of connection exchange known as the TCP three-way handshake. Let's quickly go over the process in a way three-way handshake appears. The client's computer sends packet. The client's computer sends packet to request a connection with the server. This request is made using the SYN. The server sends acknowledgement messages to the client computer SYN-ACK. The client sends another message to the server, but this time around it is an acknowledgement message, that is ACK. What is the SYN? SYN is a TCP packet sent to another computer requesting that a connection to be established between them. Attackers use the IP spoof to make the three stages of this process impossible. Instead of the original server or recipient computer to get the request, a spoof gets the SYN from the requesting computer. That way, the attacker successfully hijacks the responses thus requesting computer is supposed to get from the trusted server. This is where they introduce social engineering methods to direct the unsuspecting user of the request computer to a malware. Then we have the methods to prevent the IP address spoofing attack. The first prevention method is the firewall. A firewall, which is also known as an application gateway, is a set of proxy servers and packet filters. Basically, a firewall can block unauthorized access. Basically, a firewall can block unauthorized connections from being accessed. A proxy server, on the other hand, works as a mediator that establishes the connection between both the external user and the public network. The firewall establishes a barrier that must be crossed by traffic moving in multiple directions. It works as an IP packet level filter and provides an efficient method for securing, auditing, tracking the local network against external malicious network security threats, routing attacks, and IP spoofing. It is an integrated network protection system that not only offers hardware but also software-based security. The next one we have the VPN. VPN stands for the Virtual Private Network and describes the opportunity to establish a protected network connection when using public networks. VPNs encrypt your internet traffic and disguise your own online identity. A VPN hides your IP address by letting the network redirect it through a specially configured remote server run by a VPN host. This means that if you surf online with a VPN, the VPN server becomes the source of your data. This means your internet service provider and other third parties cannot see which websites you visit or what data you send online. So I'll conclude by saying that IP spoofing is an old hacker trick, and since we are all gradually moving towards everything in online phase, be it shopping, transactions, etc., it is necessary to keep ourselves safe against this biggest threat of cybersecurity. Thank you.